Hi, and welcome everyone to the end of life journey and beyond, the sands of time. My name is Lisa Strahs-Lorenc, and I am a bereavement specialist. And it's always good to see you, Susan.
Oh, it's so wonderful to see you, Lisa. I'm excited about today's show, although I told you earlier I was a little nervous about today's show, but it's important enough for us to speak about. So I want to welcome everybody to our YouTube channel. And today we're going to call this something about navigating post-election emotions. You'd say, Susan and Lisa, why are you talking about something like this? But we're addressing the topic because it touches so many people deeply. The grief and the anxiety that can follow an election, okay, regardless of the outcome, is real.
It
And
is.
because Lisa and I talk so much about grief, and we've talked about other kinds of grief too, like just last week, divorce and mediation and that type of grief. Well, this can be part of that as well. So we were hesitant again because it's such a sensitive subject, but we decided in hearing from our friends and so many people that so many people are affected by this, but yet they don't often talk about it. So political elections have a way of stirring our deepest emotions and our fears for the future, right? I feel that. And especially when the results don't align with our expectations, it can leave us with a feeling of feeling lost, a feeling of being scared, and feeling overwhelmed. But remember that you're not alone in these feelings, and there are healthy ways to cope and to move forward. So today, Lisa and I, although different beliefs, it doesn't matter because we're talking about the same subject here. And we'd like to explore this a little together with you. So we welcome you and thank you for listening in to our many topics about grief and end of life and sharing this. So today this is important enough with tomorrow being the election, Lisa, right? And I
Yes,
know you agree.
I do. Yes. So let me just take you back to how many years I've been involved with politics. I grew up in a very political household where in the 60s, we actually had a Long Island campaign headquarters. Okay. My parents were of both different political beliefs and persuasions, and yet they were able to live in a house together and continue to have a good relationship. But I was raised very politically, and I understood the ramifications of politics and how important decisions were and all. So I started becoming very active in 1972, and that was my first year because I was 18. And from that point on, I have participated in every election, every major election, and I've also participated in the other years, where I have either demonstrated or I have rallied or I have made phone calls or I have done something. So politics and me have always been part of my life. So you have the aftermath of politics. There's always going to be one side. It's like football. I was thinking about the Super Bowl or the any football, or even the baseball series, like the World Series. So you have a team that is thrilled. They do their wonderful ticker tape parades and whatever, and they're thrilled that they won. And then you have the other team that didn't win. So it's very similar here, except that it's even more personal. People get personally involved with politics. It's their beliefs, it's the things that they absolutely feel committed to. They spend time, effort, and even the people who are not even that active are still have strong feelings about what's going on, either in the country or the world or whatever. So this is really important.
Comment, Lisa. Just because of my age and where I am now in life. And I remember as a little girl, there used to be nice, intelligent conversation
Yes, that's true.
wrapped around the word politics at the house, and
That's
everybody
true.
could always talk about their beliefs and
That's true.
and different sides of the coin, and that would be okay. But something's happened
Yes.
here, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
over the last years, I find with the people in my life that the conversation's not even being had,
I know,
almost because it promotes anger
I know,
and discord, under the in your household
I know. There,
with your family, and
yeah,
that's a little frightening
I
when
know,
people even have discussions and get
I know,
angry.
I know. There are very strong feelings. They're very strong beliefs. Um, and people have lost friends. People have lost relatives. Um, and you have to weigh, okay, so how important were those relationships? I choose, if it's somebody who I know has different beliefs, I choose not to engage because people are committed to whatever they believe in. And so I've chosen not to get entwined in some of the discussions because people are very emotional about this and they're very, very committed to what they believe to be right. And it's getting very volatile. It is very volatile.
It's having more of an open heart or being flexible like people did in the past. It's getting more difficult because people are one-sided and they're getting angry at things. I am friends with an older woman. We're very good friends, and she travels a lot, for her work, but she had to go to, I don't know, Michigan, Wisconsin, one of those, to an event, but she was staying at a very close girlfriend's house. They've been very close since they were young. And she was nervous about going because of her strong views on politics. Now, my friend has strong views as well, but she was nervous about staying under her roof for whether it was 2 nights or 3 nights, I don't know, um, because she was afraid that there would be argument in the
Yeah,
house.
yeah, yeah.
That's terrible.
Um, all I can say, we are going to talk about post-election grief, but all I can say is that there are important issues being discussed and important decisions about this country. And so on both sides, okay. And so people have very strong feelings about and fears and beliefs about what they feel should be the direction of our country. And there are lasting effects for both ways. But so I understand the problem is that we've gotten to a different elevation of point here and different elevation of people's feelings and beliefs and everything else. So, but we are here to talk about post-election, and there's been many times where I understand those feelings. Everybody, somebody's gonna win, somebody's gonna lose. Okay. So, but here you are working for months and sometimes years on campaigns, whether they're local or whether they're national. And you put yourself, whether it's phone banking or canvassing or sending postcards out, whatever it is, but you put your effort and your time into something that you absolutely believe in, that you absolutely have devoted yourself to. And now it's the day after, which is going to be Wednesday. Many people will be up all night watching returns. And then we have to deal with what happens after that. So I started doing some research, really interesting.
Tell
Go ahead.
everybody we're recording the day before
Yes, we are. Yes,
today.
yes,
So
yes. The
today's the
4th. Today's the 4th. Yes. And tomorrow's election day. And many people, the fact that there's been so many early voters must mean that everybody does feel that this is a very important election. I
right.
mean,
Okay.
this country has had a history of, 33% or something voting, and it's much more than that this time already. So it's interesting that there are more committed people this time, and they must feel that it's important, very important. So I found, okay, so I found an article, and it was written by an assistant professor of political science, University of Tennessee. Okay. And he wrote it on November 5th, 2020, 4 years ago. And that was also a volatile kind of time. So here it is. The name of the title of the article is Post-Election Grief is Real. And here are 5 coping strategies, including getting back into politics. And I really learned a lot from this article. Um, and this is not new because he actually wrote about a woman from Alabama who talked about after Abraham Lincoln was elected on November 6th, 1860. That's that's really, oh, where'd I go? Okay, sorry, something happened.
That's all
Uh,
right. You
okay,
first for a second.
here
Now
we
you're
are.
back. You're back.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Something is wrong. The camera is going off, and I'm not sure why.
And you
Okay,
went.
camera's going off again. Sorry. Um, I don't know what's going on with the camera here. I'm going to switch around a little bit and see if there was something that was leaning. There's probably something leaning on it. Um, okay. So I'm back and hopefully I stay back. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay,
On
so
with the article, though. This is very important.
yeah, so I was talking about Abraham Lincoln and this woman, Sarah Epsy, wrote in her diary, and I want to quote this because this is really interesting. In 1860, the day after the election, she wrote she felt grieved, and she said that the certainty that Lincoln and that the Southern states are going to withdraw from the Union, it's the beginning of woe. So she was worried about the country. She was worried about the South. Remember, she's from Alabama, and she was worried about the state of the Union. That's what she was worried about. So she's grieving about that, and she's writing it in her diary. I was really surprised. I didn't realize that people were so, concerned and so worried about, their political situations. Now listen to this. So and true now. So many Americans were deeply upset. This is what he wrote following the victories of Barack Obama in 2008 and of Donald Trump in 2016. So it's really interesting. I want to just talk about the symptoms of depression after an election. Ready for this? Sadness, loneliness, and fatigue. We're exhausted from all this, okay? And it is a widespread phenomenon, he says, especially after the aftermath of 2020, okay? Because there's been a contentious political divide. And look, it is still a contentious political divide. That's what we have right now. So this is what he found. He found that citizens who suffer from depression are less politically engaged. And he's trying to figure out how politics impacts citizens' mental health, especially after an election. And that's true. How difficult it is for all of us to pick ourselves up and say, okay, election's over. Now we have to go on.
I
Not
think
easy.
the important thing here to add in is that, you might not be suffering from these feelings that we're talking about, but if you do know somebody in your circles or in your life, really, you need to just be soft and you need to have a little bit of a gentle heart and you need to validate their feelings,
That's right.
right? Whatever emotions they're going through, their grief, their fear, their disappointment.
Yes.
I think it's important to validate their feelings.
And it's
You might,
real. It's
okay,
real.
you might not agree with them. You
Right.
might think it's ridiculous, but
Right.
it's important to validate their feelings.
That's right. That's right. So the politics of depression, this is really interesting. He quotes a 2004, that's 20 years ago, 2004 Pew Research Center survey that found that 29% of Kerry supporters felt depressed in the wake of George Bush's reelection. And a 2008 Associated Press found 25% of of Republicans were upset following the election of Barack Obama. Okay. So you have it on all sides. You have people who are dedicated, who care about who wins, who looks at politics very intimately and are concerned. They're concerned about what's going to happen to their lives, to their country, and they're depressed because look how hard they worked in the election. Okay. They talk about the 5 stages of grief, which is Elizabeth Kubler-Ross. Okay. That page, the 5 stages of loss, what page was up 210% the day after Hillary Clinton lost the election in
Wow,
2016. How's that? Is that crazy?
that's very
Crazy.
interesting.
Yeah, yeah. You got
Very
Google Trends
interesting.
showing this. this is real. This grief and this disappointment and this feeling of complete desperation, because some people feel very desperate that their candidate that they worked so hard for didn't win. So yeah. So he
Yes, good. And that's why I was excited about talking about this topic because it's not a talked about topic,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So people know that there's something going on, but don't they take it very lightly
Yeah,
because maybe they don't know somebody who's that traumatized by the whole situation.
that's
So
right.
it's important to acknowledge and understand post-election
That's right.
stress.
That's right. Now, what I liked about this article is he's got some ways to cope. Okay. The first way to cope, he says, is focusing on your healthy living because it will help restore sort of your energy. So you give yourself breaks from the news. Okay. Don't go crazy on politics and get enough sleep, he says. Eat well, get some exercise, and just take care of yourself. That's the first thing he says. The second thing he says is limit the time on social media because everybody goes crazy on social media and that becomes part of your whole existence. And people stay
Yeah,
on it and become embroiled with it, right? Too much
great.
Facebook, too much Twitter, too much, it really increases the anxiety and your depression. It makes it even worse. So the next thing is to seek out social support. Talk to a family member, talk to a friend, a community leader, find a support group in your area to just talk about the challenges of the election and all that. Because social isolation makes this worse, makes your
Yeah.
negative feelings worse, and makes you feel more alone. And that's really, really important.
As
Now,
with everything and every type of grief that we
that's
talk about,
right. That's right.
support is important.
It is. Then he says, this is interesting. He says, affirm the value of democracy. Electoral loss is scary, but it also means that you can look at democracy and say, hey, that's all part of our democratic system. And you might want to become active in a certain group or, he mentions building bridges, which I don't know that group, but it is a group. It brings together citizens with diverse political views and to engage in, structured conversations. And then you have to accept the outcome. And you can get involved in politics in any ways because you feel empowered. So begin participating again to help relieve some of your psychological stress because what'll happen is you'll distance yourself and then you'll feel, oh, this is the end of the world. He says go back into it, go back into your local elections and local people and stuff and continue to engage. Don't become so separated that then you again feel like it's the end of the world.
Right.
And it does feel like that for some people because of how committed they are to their candidates or their candidate. You got your local stuff and then you've got your national. So both are really, really important. The conversations are really interesting. I never thought really of these coping mechanisms and that grief is such a part of this. But
Yeah.
all of us who watch these elections, again, somebody wins, somebody loses. And when you're so committed and work so hard, for candidates, it is very hard.
It's not even committed's a good word, but working for
Yes,
candidates
that's right.
is not the only thing.
Yes,
I think about how I have a couple friends who can't stop watching,
I know.
right? So they have their
Yes,
channels they watch and they can't stop watching
I know.
24/7. And when they're in their car, they're listening.
Yep, yep,
And that to me is can be draining and an overwhelming piece of all this too.
it is.
No, it is a loss. It's a loss with all this being gone, from their life. And you need to substitute that. And this year more than any year, I think I found that it has lasted longer.
Yeah.
It's been a whole meaner production,
Yes.
right? The way people are picking on each other. And so not only are we not having we're going to withdraw from the intelligent conversations that people are having, but I don't know, could it be a sigh of relief? Oh, good, thank goodness, the attacks are over, but you're also suffering from this roller coaster ride that you've been on,
That's right.
you know, flowing down the river in your canoe, or and
Yeah.
not being able to stop, and then coming to a crash tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's been months and stuff that people are active. So now it's like down. It's like completely down, you know? Now what? So I like the coping mechanisms that he's talked about and strategies. I really do. I think that they make sense. And I do think that you need to seek out, support, so that you understand you're not alone in some of these feelings and all. Um, again, people are passionate and people believe and they work hard for that. So, as I have for all these years.
Definitely agree with you know, so finding uh, some substitutions, because
Yeah.
you're not
Yeah.
watching the TV as
That's
much
right. That's
or
right.
listening as much. So be gentle, you know, with yourself and ease your way into that new world. I'm sure if you're that involved in listening and watching, you'll still continue to do so.
Mhm.
You know, we're not taking that away from you completely, or nobody can take that away from
Right.
you.
Right.
We'll still continue. But I think it's great that we're raising a little bit of awareness
Me too.
today
Me too.
of these detrimental feelings that so many people are suffering and going through. So even if you're not, again, be aware, you know, be aware and watch your words.
Yeah.
Watch your words, because you can say one thing to really upset somebody.
Yep. Yep.
You mean to, but your words are, you know, I mean, I had my son was young at the time. He was just a teenager, and he had said something on his social media page. Wasn't bad. It really wasn't bad, but I guess it was immature. It was coming from a 16 or 17-year-old, right? And he had an aunt and her part of her family who blocked him for
Wow.
that. And this
Wow.
is your family,
Yeah.
you know, but they blocked him because, and it just ended that relationship. And
Yep.
that's a little funny, because that's what we're talking about. Politics, the subject of politics shouldn't have to end relationships,
I know.
and yet it does.
It does. It does.
So
And
be
I
aware.
look, I respect the fact that people feel very strongly about, certain people, about certain lives, about your country and all. But in the end, we're all human beings and we have to figure out how to live together. And so we need to figure out how to move on afterwards, after an election, and figure out how to work together. That's the bottom line. It really is the bottom line. I mean, the United States is an amazing country, and I wouldn't want to live anywhere else. So, we have a political system that may not be perfect, um, and other things, but we do need to figure out how we can all be one. And whatever happens, and that's true.
You know
So,
what would be, that was well said, Lisa, but I was just thinking this would be an interesting statistic, and maybe we should have looked this up before we did this show today.
okay.
But I'm curious to know whether the heat and the anger um, comes from older adults,
Mm,
older Americans who have
mhm,
been around the block and really have their
mm,
feelings
mm,
ended at this point, or younger people.
mm,
Because I do know in my own household, you know, with my two sons who are now adults, um, they can be very strongly opinionated. And I'm not. I have my opinions, but I'm more flexible. I hear everybody out, and I'm more middle of the road, but they were not.
mhm. Interesting.
I wonder,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
younger or older that are having a harder time with these grief type emotions.
Hmm.
I don't. If
Yeah.
anybody does, we'd love to hear that in the
Yeah.
comments.
Sure. Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. And we'd love to hear, we always welcome comments. And I love to hear what people's reactions are, because we do explore so many different topics that are not discussed in other places. which is what I
And we
love
want
to do.
to be down the middle of the road because some people think one way, other people have other
Yeah.
feelings. So, and I try very hard to incorporate that. So, knowing that and knowing how we've been talking about lately about feelings of grief that are not only around death,
Mm-hmm.
can be around divorce
Yes.
or politics, or we'd love to hear some suggestions from you. If you
Sure.
know of another topic that maybe we haven't covered, please leave it in the suggestions or shoot us an email because, these are important subjects that can help and educate and raise awareness in so many ways when people
Yes.
don't talk about it. And I think this is a big one.
Me too.
Um, the idea of politics today and especially how heated the last few months have been.
Yes.
I think it's important to talk about it, to raise awareness and become a little more gentle in your spirit, okay, when it comes to seeing the half glass full or half empty, no matter whose idea it is.
It's true.
Just being more understanding and wanting to learn from your counterpart or from the other side. There's no reason we can't do that, especially in our country. And I thought we always did do that.
Mhm. We did. Something changed. Something changed.
Maybe that's why these conversations, Lisa, are not really, they haven't been had too much in the past, right? Neither one of us have heard about too many conversations like this. And yet, this article we bounced off of today was written years ago.
Yeah, that's right. 2020. Another crazy time, by the way. That was a crazy time. So,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So, yeah, elections are getting more and more interesting, and we'll see what tomorrow brings, and then all the depression and stuff on Wednesday. So, yeah,
exactly. We may have to end up doing some other kind of video. I don't know, but hopefully we tapped into, hopefully today we made everybody aware
yes.
of a different subject, a different topic that people may be feeling. So maybe you can just be a little more um
And some good
empathetic.
and some good coping mechanisms. I mean, these
Yeah.
are things that I
Oh,
really
yeah,
hadn't thought of. And
exactly.
he obviously wrote them down, believing that that was needed at the time. And 4 years later, here we are. So, yeah,
Exactly. So take care of yourself, everybody, and we're
yes,
happy you joined in today.
yep, absolutely. Thank you. Okay,
So talk
bye.
to you next week. We got
Yep,
surprises.
yeah, yeah, bye.